starting a little late on the recording, but this should get you where you need to go, and we'll recap what we missed. So the statutory tools we use for non-regulatory plan implementation is 24 VSA Chapter 117, Subchapter 8. It's a lot of jargon, again, but it's always helpful to be able to reference the statute that guides our work at the local and regional level. And often we share the same statutes that we work upon. So we'll go through this 4 or 5 provisions that exist in Subchapter 8. And the first is Section 4430, which is the capital budget and program. And this might be maybe the most foundational aspect to implementing your town plan, because nothing can get done without money, right? And given the current financial climate within the state of Vermont and our municipalities, we really have to be super budget conscious and intentional with our spending. So what 4430 does is allow a community to establish a capital investment program and budgeting program. And we talk about capital budgeting, we're really talking about that 1-year budget cycle when all towns develop their budgets and pass them on town meeting day. This is that 1 year of this is what we have to spend to keep our town moving forward, and then what we're adding on to that year to year. The capital program is a much broader context and longer forecast, typically on the 5-year horizon, to guide investments in a community. And those are typically large capital investments. We'll talk more about what those might be, but typically what we're trying to do is align what the town is spending their money on with those town plan priorities. That doesn't always happen, right? Because a lot of things come up outside of the town plan cycle, but still should be aligned in general with the town planning program. What we're really looking to do through that capital budgeting and investment program is prioritizing large-scale capital projects and infrastructure, roads, bridges, sidewalks, all the transportation infrastructure, public water, public wastewater, which we know is one of the biggest elements to seeking more development and growth, especially housing and business and industrial growth. And obviously those are cornerstones to elements of the new reform to Act 250. Public facilities, town offices, highway garages, and of course, the other elements like parks and recreation that also require pretty large capital investments. Really, the key point here is that capital budgeting is one of the most important implementation tools available to municipalities because it focuses on the money. And in our region and across the state of Vermont, there's a renewed emphasis on establishing these capital investment programs because costs are rising and revenue is not, right? So in order to grow our grand list, we have to make certain investments. And to do that, they need to be guided through a very structured approach. What capital budgeting can do is help towns answer really complicated questions that may be politically contentious. What projects do we do first on our laundry list of projects? How are we going to pay for them? Is it public funds through bonding? Is it a grant? Is it tax money? And what is realistic given the financial situation of the town or even the capacity of a community? Ultimately, this creates predictability within a community looking to make investments. And that includes residents and taxpayers understanding how their community is spending their money, not just today, but for tomorrow. Developers that want to invest in your community and knowing that the infrastructure and the planning is behind the community in which they're investing in. And then, of course, our funding agencies. The Vermont Bond Bank is one entity that's looking at maybe in the future even requiring capital planning to be established in a community to seek bond bank funding, which I think just shows it demonstrates a level of commitment and organization that is really necessary to handle large sums of money. So this really can materialize in a couple different ways. The capital improvement plan, the CIP, is the most foundational way we think about it, but it can be smaller than that. Not all of our communities are going to be Rutland City with a multi-million-dollar CIP. Some might just need to focus on specific assets, like we got to replace our dump trucks and our plow trucks every 10 years. How do we do that? So this is one way to do that through this planning effort. The next subchapter provision 4431 is purchase or acceptance of development rights. This is a little bit more obscure and tends to not happen as much, certainly in the Rutland region. But what it allows the municipality to do is develop a program to purchase or accept development rights or stewardship of those rights. Ultimately, those developments need to follow the purpose and goals of Vermont's planning framework set out in section 4302. That is our planning goals. All of your town plans have to have those goals within them, including our regional plan. And what this really focuses on, of course, are our primary land use goals, which are protecting land, it's promoting development and resilience, and all those other elements that are within our planning goals. The next provision is 4432, and that is outlining supporting plans. Now, supporting plans is a vast concept, but there are two buckets that we think about supporting plans in. Sort of one-off project-based or studies or feasibilities, and then more formal plans that actually, through this effort, become part of your town plan. So in the case of a community in the Rutland region, the town may say, hey, we have developed something like an access management plan within our community to manage our traffic and our access to roads or businesses and curb cuts, or a center plan like revitalizing or development in a downtown or village center. Ultimately, if those plans are adopted formally, they go through the same adoption process that your town plan does. So think of it like your enhanced energy plan or a rider on your plan. It's something that's basically concrete and standalone, but it will be part of that overarching planning document. The key value of these supporting plans, it really adds detail and specificity beyond the town plan, which tends to be pretty general, right? Like that's the intent of the town plan. But ultimately, it positions projects for funding and implementation in a much more specific and intentional way than through broad sort of discussions within your plan of a specific project. You can say, hey, one of our goals in the town plan is to build a new highway garage, and then your specific planning effort might be to actually blow out that highway garage plan and then adopt it within your actual town plan. In addition to actual plans, are the bodies in which we implement these plans beyond just our standard operating planning commission model. Many communities have these already in various forms. And, planning commissions have authority to create these advisory groups that look to engage maybe new volunteers or different stakeholders with maybe subject matter expertise or interest in that particular topic. We've seen these throughout our region in Vermont. Some examples could include housing committees, looking at housing needs assessments throughout the town, conservation commissions, very common one, downtown village committees, and the like. There are several different options that can advise and focus on specific elements beyond the broader focus of a planning commission. ultimately, these commissions and committees are intended to build that local capacity, which is often a significant barrier to implementation of town plans. Many of you in this room, I know, wear multiple hats in your towns. And that tends to be true across many of our communities, that the same core group of folks who are invested and involved are involved across the spectrum. So maybe this is a way to bring in new folks. It can maintain that momentum between plan updates. We have many planning commissions that sort of languish between that 8-year cycle and wonder what they should be doing because most of the implementation falls to the select board. This is a way to maintain that momentum. And then, like I said, subject matter and expertise is always a valued add. Before I go on to more specific non-statutory elements of plan implementation, are there any questions so far? Yeah.
Okay, so the last one where you talk about engaging volunteers, so they would be planning commission members, or could they be somebody from the community that has that expertise?
Exactly, the latter. Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there can be members of a conservation commission that aren't on any other board in the town. Yep.
Could you expand a little bit on 4431? What does it mean for the municipality to purchase development
Yeah.
rights?
Yeah, so unfortunately, my understanding of this particular provision is limited because it has not been something that we have been a part of. Jason or Brian, has this been part of any of your regional commission towns?
No.
Honestly, no, it has not.
Yeah, so it's a pretty obscure thing. And Steve, what I can do is look into this more and see if there have been examples.
Okay.
Brian, you were gonna say something, though, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think there's a joke said there's more articles written about transfer development rights in Vermont than has ever actually happened.
So there you go, Steve.
Okay.
You know, without speculating wildly, I'm sure there are instances where this may be applicable, but I think it.
Devin, I think you're muted.
I think we lost them, huh?
I think so. I can't hear anything.
Well, I think they lost a connection or something. So hopefully they come back here in another minute or so.
Jason, will you be able to send me a copy of this presentation when we're done?
Yeah, as soon as I get it, I'll pass it along to you. Absolutely.
All right, we're back in. Folks, we got booted. We're having fun issues today. We lost our Wi-Fi. So hang on 2 seconds.
Should I actually restart recording or will it have?
It's recording right now. But unfortunately, I
was gonna say my computer
still isn't hooked up.
is not finding that Wi-Fi anymore.
Jesus. Hang on.
Yeah. That's what I was doing in the studios down there, because I went to graduate school at UMass. We did a bunch of work. And they were setting up land banks, trying to consider the heat.
The large conference room is connected to the other.
Yeah, I think it's because it's hardwired.
So they were willing to spend money.
1 second, folks, will be right back on.
Surveys.
Out of interest, you can contract with 2 ISPs and get a router that is to do a WAN import and do load balancing and failover. So if one of them fails on the ISP side, it automatically is picked up on the one that's still on.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. So has been today surveyed his big lot by Sarasota. And first cabin, he brought everything up on like Seacon.
Yeah.
Just because very local.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Study so much.
Okay, thank God for personal hotspots. Here we go. We're back online. Okay. Thank you for the patience. So sorry for these interruptions. Let's move on. Local implementation practice. These are really going to be those tips and tools outside the statutes that really can help further our goals, policies, and actions. This is go. There we go. Okay. So earlier we had referenced the fact that, planning commissions, while in charge of developing the town plan, which is a super important role, often can be disconnected from the implementation of that town plan. And so internal coordination within a municipality is so key. And that really requires relationship building and routine communication with the select board and the legislative body in the community and other boards and municipal officials to make sure that there is a connection between the planning commission and the legislative body. Really, we're looking to align municipal actions, the municipal budgeting and capital plan, making sure that the planning commission and the select board are working in unison on that, supporting those grant applications to fund those investments, and of course, aligning the subject matter experts and officials in towns like Public Works who may be working with the material day to day versus the planning commission that is a little bit more removed from the day-to-day operations of the community. Regular communication is a must to make this happen. To do that, joint meetings are always really recommended between select boards and planning commissions. It's hard to do, right? We're finding a way to connect with the select board and encouraging that collaboration in joint meetings is always a great idea. Some communities use a select board or legislative body representative to sit on a select board, or in some cases, a town manager or administrator. Other ways to do this could be through routine memos or project updates from the planning commission to the select board. Now, I know in our region, our towns are really good about this, providing planning commission updates to the select board and actually have a standing, typically the planning commission chair, a standing item on the select board, whether they have to be there in person or provide that in written form. Either way. Beyond that, also public outreach within the community, making sure that beyond the required sort of public outreach that we do during the town planning effort, I think the community wants to know what planning commissions are doing between those 8-year cycles and really understand what the priorities are between plan updates. What we're trying to do by promoting this level of coordination and collaboration is to avoid that silo decision making that usually prohibits plan implementation. But to do that, everyone really needs to understand their roles and responsibilities. It can be really a shock to new planning commission members when they realize that their work really cannot be advanced or promulgated without the authority of the select board. So understanding that interplay between those two bodies is crucial for advancing those plan goals. And ultimately that goalpost we are aiming at long term is that every municipal action reinforces the town plan. I don't think any of us can make that claim now, but it should be the goal that we are aiming for. Outside of the internal, of course, includes some external, but thinking about coordination and collaboration and that team approach at scale is always important. We think about key relationships being, of course, that planning commission, the select board, the planning commission and the staff, the people who are actually day-to-day operating the town, your town managers, your zoning admins, your road foremans. And of course, the municipality then needs to coordinate at the regional scale with partners like the RRPC or your regional planning commissions, CEDAR, which is our RDC in our community or our region, and others. And of course, state partners, because we all, as a Dillon Rules state, sort of operate under the state framework. And knowing who is your contact at those state agency partners, whether it's natural resources, transportation, or administration, can really help you leverage funding and regulatory mechanisms to help you. To do all of this is important, but there's another further goal in building a coalition, especially around specific projects or programs in your town. And this can be really challenging because there's a lot of noise in our communities and competing with misinformation that's on Facebook, political sort of unrest. It can be really hard to cut through. So trying to provide opportunities to empower new community champions and understanding those roles and responsibilities is important. There are business leaders and community-based organizations that can really be an asset through this plan implementation, and trying to really focus on that shared ownership of the plan. It is not just the planning commissions, it is not just the select boards, it is every single person living within your town that falls under your town plan goals. So trying to communicate through various modes, active and passive, and we could have a whole nother training on just engagement. And maybe that's something we should do in the future, because we learn every day on engagement strategies. What are we trying to do? Why does it matter? And that second question can be really hard because there are so many elements underpinning. And it's unfair because we all operate with years of understanding and experience that most folks day to day do not have to even consider. So how can we cut through and really focus on that? Because if implementation is going to succeed, it cannot be owned by just one board alone. So we've learned about the statute. We've talked about how we can collaborate internally and externally to realize and achieve our goals. So let's talk about how we can actually further plans in specific ways and drill down into those problems, projects, or programs that really are going to be where the rubber meets the road. Master plans and feasibility or scoping studies are the most foundational elements that we try to support towns with in furthering specific goals and actions from their town plans. What we're trying to do is move those ideas from concept to construction by developing concepts, cost estimates, and those phasing strategies that might be required for bigger, longer projects, in an effort to reduce that uncertainty for not only the town, but those who might be investing in the town or those public funders that we are trying to seek grant funding from, And ultimately, our end goal, again, get the projects to a place where they are fundable and they are buildable. We often call that shovel ready in our business, right? Getting to shovel ready is key. And that can be really challenging because we don't know where to start. Here are some examples of, there are many more, but here's some examples just from our region of various master plans and studies that have helped promote specific projects in communities, whether it's a village master plan. There's many of those downtowns and village master plans looking at more areas and various elements within the area. Housing plans, we just had one done in Mount Holly to look at housing needs. Brownfields is one where like we typically don't think about in the classical town planning sense, but of course it helps develop a formerly undervalued parcel in a community. Various feasibility studies. There's one for housing in Fairhaven right now on a town-owned parcel. Resiliency studies like flood mitigation, scoping studies for specific projects like Center Street scoping in Rutland, transportation plans, or even intermunicipal studies. Like in the case of Pulteney, they're considering merging their village and their town together. In addition to these studies, the designation program is always a worthwhile avenue to unlock certain incentives in a community. And of course, this program has changed drastically with the advent of Act 181 and has moved from that legacy designation framework to a unified framework under just two categories: centers and neighborhoods. So we have downtowns and villages and planned growth areas and village areas. All of you have probably been lambasted by this terminology during our regional planning update efforts in Act 181, because we are aligning these designations now with our regional future land use maps, which are actually on the walls next to you all. The goal of this is to direct growth in the plan areas and align that growth with the available infrastructure. And of course, unlock those various incentives from tax credits to grant priority to Act 250 relief in the case of Tier 1A and 1B. Again, this could be an entire training by itself. But of course, money talks, and usually we can do all the planning in the world, but this is the hardest part. And I wish I could tell you that the sort of outlook is sunny, but we're all competing for the same funds. So making sure you hit that shovel ready position is going to get you in the best place for public money. There are a ton of grant programs available in Vermont, but the challenge, like I said earlier, is matching that project stage to the right funding source. And regional planning commissions and state partners can really help with this, from identifying grants to helping you apply for those grants and even administering those grants or providing project management. I cannot possibly begin to give you the full list, but if I could generate some sort of general buckets for you of where things could be and where you might find them. Planning, master plans, and feasibility studies. We think about ACCD, the Agency of Commerce and Community Development, or the Vermont Community Development Program. Transportation, of course, under VTrans and Federal Highway. Infrastructure is so broad, but like water and sewer under DEC or the EPA, USDA Rural Development or the Economic Development Administration, or even the congressionally directed spending. Brownfields and economic development, of course, under EPA, Department of Economic Development, and then flooding and resiliency, which is very important for our land use planning in Vermont Emergency Management, or FEMA. Municipal planning grants are our bread and butter. That is our core statewide planning grant for towns, and it funds a broad array of different planning efforts. Each year, there's typically different priorities that the agency will produce and sort of prioritize grant applications that meet those priorities. But generally, you can think of town plans, studies, bylaw modernization, capital planning, all can fall and be funded by this. These are available annually each fall. And as of now, there's, usually about $1 million to $1.5 million available. And each grant is worth up to 30,000 per single town or 45,000 per multiple towns. That was a lot. And I wanted to try to get through it quick because we sort of had to overcome some obstacles with tech today. But what I want you to take away from this training are a few key pieces. And that is, do not expect implementation to just happen on its own. It is not automatic. And I think all of you know and are shaking your heads like, yeah, we know between 8-year cycles, sometimes nothing happens. So we need to be intentional. These tools we talked about are a really effective way to implement your town plans because they focus on some key elements. Coordination within your municipality, make sure the right people in the right places are ready to take action, making sure we're budgeting and planning on the funding side, building those coalitions within our community, developing projects in a much more specific intentional scale, and of course, seeking that public funding and aligning with the projects. Because at the end of the day, a town plan can either collect dust on a shelf or we can actually use it. So let's open it up and have a conversation about how we can all better position ourselves to implement the town plans that you all work so hard on year after year. Any thoughts in the room? Any problems? Any sort of like situations you want a round table? Anything that sort of comes to mind in your own community that you've been thinking about and would like to discuss? Or questions about any of the various topics we talked about? Yeah.
Well, one thing, that I didn't see specifically mentioned was inventories
Mhm.
of things that might lead to knowing better where your areas are that you want to conserve
Mm,
versus the areas that might be more suitable for development.
yeah.
Things like we just did a study on wildlife crossings.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see us do a vernal pool inventory.
Cool. I know you just did a tree inventory too. I
We
think.
just did, for the shade tree preservation plan, we just did a sort of shade tree
Yeah.
inventory.
Yeah.
Um,
That's a great point. And whenever I think about capital planning, I always think about asset management. And to do that, you have to inventory your assets. And you're talking about the land use side. I'm talking more on the specific element side, but still, you're absolutely right. Data-driven decision-making is really what this is about. And there are so many tools now available that didn't exist that can even be free to towns. Like Survey 123 and ArcGIS that used to be very exclusive and expensive can be available to municipalities and RPCs can assist in setting those systems up. We already do a lot of inventorying for towns right now where Sean was out today doing a road erosion inventory in the town of Timmins. This is where RPCs can really help on that capacity issue, right? Because often that can be, but that's a great thought.
I know you've done the culverts,
Yep.
which have been really great.
Yep, which is essentially a lead into an asset inventory, right?
Yeah, I like your suggesting about the vernal pools. Because I think with the lakeside, there's a lot of little lakes around.
Mhm.
And if there are vernal pools that are creating flood hazards when we do have a rash of wet weather.
Mhm.
Does the state do anything with that at all?
With vernal pools.
Yeah, just to kind of have an inventory of what's out there.
It's on the ANR Atlas.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not complete because the scale
Yeah.
can be so
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
That's where
Well, that, yeah,
your point of like, no one knows your town better than you.
Yeah.
Right?
right, especially with the elevation differences, that's gonna be
Sure.
what impacts it.
And of course, natural resource protection, vernal pools often have most of our vernal species, right? That come around every spring. So yeah, that's a great point.
That's why I wanted wetlands on the LURB mapping.
Yep, of course.
Yeah, this ANR Atlas has vernal pools and then suspected or potential, I can't remember how they phrase it, vernal pools,
Mhm.
but it's a very incomplete
Yeah.
mapping
Yeah.
inventory.
Yeah.
You have micro environments there and you have other ones, very larger,
Mhm.
and they all should be mapped and protected.
Folks online, any thoughts or questions for us? And also can be directed at, of course, your other regional commissions if it's location specific. So I did that good of a job. Nice. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Aaron.
But no, I just wanted to say this was super helpful. We're about to get started on updating our town plan in Ludlow and very, very helpful.
Yep.
So thank you.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, Aaron, that I didn't even think about, which is maybe we should be thinking about implementation on the onset of a plan being developed, right? Like
Oh, yes.
thinking about the end goal at the start could maybe sort of ground truth some things earlier and proof of concept, right? So that's great. I'm glad to hear you're considering that, Aaron.
Well, isn't that where the actions come in?
That's where they should.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that's always the case, right?
Got me.
Yeah.
What would be an example of the joint meeting thing? Because we haven't ever done that, Paul, that I know of, but what would be some case examples where joint meetings of planning commissions and select boards, for example, would be something that would be encouraged?
Yeah, that's a great question, Frank. And I think I like to think of when a town planning commission creates a town plan and maybe the select board for various reasons really doesn't understand what's in that town plan until the town planning commission passes a municipal resolution and hands it off to them. At that point, it's too late. At that point, it's only in the select board's hands. So maybe before the municipal resolution, bringing in that select board and saying, hey, we want a joint meeting before we send this and finalize this plan.
Yeah,
Hey, here it is, you know? I think that could avoid a lot of heartache and also allow the planning commission to maybe retain control of the plan before it is handed over to the select board, you know?
As a decision making body.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
And I'll,
yeah.
I'll even piggyback on that tonight. Actually, Tinmouth PC and Tinmouth Select Board is meeting together because they're working on their enhanced energy plan right now, and they're looking forward to, on the next meeting, kind of pushing it forward and getting started in the real adoption process. So they wanted to wrap in the select board in case they had comments or they wanted to change stuff so that ahead of time it wasn't like a last minute editing thing. So they decided to push forward a joint meeting basically a month before they're almost done with their process.
A joint meeting could be special meeting. So
Yeah.
it'd be after further with the regular business.
Yeah.
And it could be a later lightweight thing, for example, education, like energy, education, general production, multimedia, where everybody gets together and they watch something and then discuss it, kind of like a book club type.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's a really cool idea. I also like to think about like in Aaron's situation prior to a town plan development, having a brainstorming session about like, what are the priorities that we share that should be embedded in this plan? You know, that could be, and I think about regional planning commissions are required through our work to hold 2 enhanced consultations over that 8-year cycle. Maybe that's an opportunity for the regional planning commission to also be a part of a joint meeting as well. Because that's usually the sort of litmus test of like, what is happening with this town plan? And it's a nice checkup sort of to, you know, see the health of that town plan either at the earlier or the later. Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, just sort of thinking of a couple of other sort of examples. You know, I've had a bunch of select boards meet jointly with the planning commission when they're presented with a request for a preferred site letter for, say, a solar project. So that's worked well, generally speaking. We have more regularly now our housing commissions meeting jointly with the planning commission to sort of figure out how the heck can we make, some impact there on housing. And another, like Devin was just talking about a minute ago, Chester's just starting their town plan process, and the town manager is just organizing an all boards meeting. And so literally all the boards in town get together for pizza or whatever, and they talk about basically the town plan. What should we be focusing on? And so I think there's any number of ways or reasons to meet, but I think the more we do those sorts of things, it can be really effective.
I love that idea of all boards. That is so cool. Thanks for sharing that, Jason.
I know you had a hand up a couple minutes.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm almost certain that your answer is going to be communication. But how do you avoid competition between the planning commission, and especially if the planning commission, after they finish the town plan, stay active, and the select board?
You said
Yeah,
competition.
competition, where it's like, especially when you're in a small town like West Haven,
Mhm.
where maybe we should be doing more things.
Mhm. Like,
But our town plan is pretty moderate.
yeah. So you would like to see more deference paid to the planning commission in select board decisions?
No, I just want to make sure that the select board doesn't feel like we are, we getting on their territory.
Yeah, I get you.
Like, wait a second, we were the ones, we have to approve they vote, the select board adopts the town plan.
Yeah.
How do you stay active, and not get into on their turf?
I think communication obviously.
See?
But no, beyond that, I think asking the question and like thinking about that roles and responsibilities element in the presentation of, okay, select board, the onus is on you now to tell me what do you want us to be doing? And if the answer is nothing, then I guess that's a different conversation, right? Because that's not utilizing capacity within the town. And especially in the case of West Haven, there is no capacity, like in terms of paid municipal staff, right?
Right.
So yeah, I think it should be a very direct conversation about, okay, what is the charge then? If this
can we help?
Can we help? Yeah, because they might not even know. They might even be like, oh, the planning commission's not interested. Well, maybe making it known that you are, and you're seeking feedback from the select board on what you could do with them, I think would be valuable. Yeah.
And sometimes just inviting one member to come in as a representative.
Yeah.
is helpful.
Yeah.
We are fortunate that we have a select board member.
Yeah.
The select board chair actually
Yes.
now is on the planning.
Yeah. Yeah. She's been on the planning commission. Yep. Yeah.
The chair.
Yeah.
Or any.
Yep. It's a bit of a gray area, but it
Okay.
happened in Brandon, I
Makes
think,
sense.
years ago,
I think
and
that happened in Pittsburgh was, no.
Benson's doing.
oh yeah, yeah.
So,
No,
rep
it
is
was-
also the select board. The
Mhm.
state rep. and
Yeah.
the select board.
There's quite a few of those. And their chair, your chair is a state representative. Yeah. So I do believe, and don't quote me, I would have to look back in emails to find this, but this was posed to the attorneys at VLCT, and I don't think they found a legal basis for any conflicts there. Maybe you guys know, Jason, I know, has this come up before, and has it ever been an issue in your regions where folks hold two postings?
Devin, VLCT has charts, because
Okay.
like we have a chart in our office because with all the turnover we've had, we're trying to make sure like town manager versus town clerk treasurer duties.
Yeah.
So they have charts for like different positions and different commissions. I urge people to check with VLCT on those charts,
Okay.
because I know I have a couple of them hanging in my office, like these are the yeses and these are the nos.
Mhm.
And it even boils it down to town manager, what committees I can't be on versus what I can.
Would you send that to me if is there a digital copy?
I can scan it and email it to you like if I was hanging on my wall.
I will try to find it and I'll let you know if I need that.
Cause that would be a good thing to just broadly distribute.
Yeah, I agree.
And,
Yeah.
and also a memo on the overlaps, the do's and don'ts
Mhm.
thing, advisory.
Mhm. Cool. Yeah, that's neat.
I would say, there's definitely talk to VLCT or your town attorney. There's always been questions about this. Sometimes there's the legal answer and then there's the practical answer. And, maybe a select board member could serve as the zoning administrator, but they're kind of appointing themselves or one of themselves, is that really a good idea? So, I think there's a number of those sorts of things that, there might be a legal answer. It's okay, but there might be other reasons why it might be good to get somebody else to do the job.
Yeah. Yeah. Got a question online too right now. From Bay Wheeler.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would like to say in Baltimore, I'm the chair of the select board, I'm the zoning administrator, I'm the emergency manager, I'm the fire warden, and I'm the health officer. So
Yeah, it is Baltimore.
I've talked
so
to VLTC a few times, and so far they haven't said you got to give some jobs up. Somebody has to do the jobs at some point. They all got to get done.
Hey, kudos to you, Bay. You're a glutton for punishment, sir. I mean, wow.
Yeah, at the end
You
of the
have
day,
no
there's
idea.
not enough people to do it. So, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
last
great.
man standing sometimes. Yep.
Yeah, and it all needs to be done. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm sort of curious about the planning commission setting up advisory groups. Because I think we were under the impression that the select board had to
Mhm.
do that. And obviously it's in the statute, so I'll go look at it. But then if the planning commission does set up advisory groups, does it have to meet open meeting requirements and
Yeah.
yes,
Can I
okay.
interject something that's coming down the pipe probably?
Mhm.
I was on the working group at the Secretary of State's office for
Right.
the open meeting law. From about this time last year all through January this year, long time. And a lot of disability people and everybody there who were complaining about not being able to get into meetings, because you can hear blah, blah, blah. And so it was how to address that in Vermont statute, but what they concluded is that the Americans with Disability Act is an overriding umbrella that basically the federal thing, which is more teeth. There's a rumor that if you have an open meeting violation, the complaint goes to the Attorney General's office. And they didn't want anything to do with it. Period. And so ADA is also could be civil and whatever. And so there's the Senate, the government operations is basically getting on an ADA advisor for the legislature. And that because really this advisory, non-advisory status that was so confusing for some people
It was crazy.
is pretty much blown away by the fact that there's a federal umbrella above it that governs that you have to be inclusive to groups who are typically those who are feeling excluded in many
Right.
cases. So
You look frozen, Brian. What do you think?
I think they're frozen.
Yeah.
I was just typing out a message about a advisory
Right,
commission
right.
or advisory groups.
So we were talking about open meeting.
but yeah, the open meeting law was
Hey, folks. We lost our internet again. I think this is the universe telling us we're going to conclude the training. So, unless there are any other questions, I really appreciate everyone coming out tonight. Thank you so much, and look for us on June 18th. Two Rivers will be talking about regulatory mechanisms for plan implementation. Awesome.
Thanks, Devin.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Devin. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.